So a while ago, I made a 10-minute long video discussing my hatred for Wuthering Heights, the book. Unbeknownst to me, they were already in production of a film that just came out this month, 2 weeks ago, actually. So I went and saw the film, of course. I didn't want to at first, but my fiance was like, "Oh, you hate Wuthering Heights. We're seeing this." And I was like, fine. So I went to see Wuthering Heights with him as like a little post-Valentine's date. And there's nothing romantic about Wuthering Heights. The whole plot of the book is that abuse is generational and it won't go away. And if you abuse somebody, they will grow up to be an abuser too. And you are unfortunately a victim to your circumstance. And this dark, brooding romance that they created in the movie is not at all what happens in the book. They did keep some original lines from the text, like probably the most famous quote where Catherine says, "Heathcliff is more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, they are the same." And of course they had to have that in the movie when she's talking to Nellie. But they made Nellie a villain, and while Nellie is not great in the book, she is the narrator. Now, is she a reliable narrator? No, not by any means, especially because she grows up with Catherine, and a lot of this plot, I feel like, might have been her being like, my bestie was wronged. So we never know what the real story of Wuthering Heights is, but I do know, however, that they were not advertising this movie right, especially when in the post it would say right underneath it as the caption, "The greatest love story of all time." Now, I'm sorry, but this is not the greatest love story of all time if Heathcliff is literally trying to drive Kathy to an insanity. In the book, he tries to prove his love to her by hanging her dog. Now, they took this out of the movie because they wanted them to seem dark and brooding and obsessive in other ways. Like, there's still a amazing part of the movie where she's like making out with him, and then they stop and he's like, "I'd do anything for you." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd even kill your husband." And she's like, "Oh, I've gone too far." And that drives him away and drives him to marry Isabella. But they've changed so many things in this movie. And when I was first looking at the movie, I didn't realize that Wuthering Heights is in quotations in the title. And this makes a lot of sense because this is not an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. This is a Wattpad fan fiction written off of a child who read Wuthering Heights as a teenager and was like, "Oh, this is so hot." Because I've seen a lot of stories like that. Like the movie After, I feel like is inspired by great love stories that she read in high school. Like, it's very clearly, like, you can see elements of Twilight, you see elements of Wuthering Heights, you see elements of Pride and Prejudice, you see some elements of the unfortunate 50 Shades of Grey, which is already a horrible adaptation in itself. But to make a good adaptation, you can't go based off of a really bad adaptation. I don't know. I just think that the person who wrote the script for Wuthering Heights 2026 did not ever read the book in its entirety. They might have read some parts of it, or gotten a crash course video. And I think what they did is they went through and they found the best quotes and used those. They might have even did a little Google search and been like, what are the best quotes in Wuthering Heights? And then snuck them in there. Because that is like the only explanation for what I saw in that movie. Because I have never once, I've read Wuthering Heights twice, never once in any of the stories, never once in any of the adaptations have I been like, this is the greatest love story of all time. Because it's tragic. It's horrible what happens to them. Everyone ends up dead, and the only people who live happily ever after are the children who get married, who are actually cousins. Because Catherine's daughter marries Heathcliff's son, coup came from Isabella, and Isabella is Catherine's husband's sister. So, like, do they actually live happily ever after, while also dousing a little bit in incest just like their parents did? Maybe, because Heathcliff and Kathy are technically adopted siblings, although they might not actually be related. There are some theories saying that they might be half siblings. So, I don't know. There's just a lot wrong with this movie. It cuts out the entire plot of the siblings. I mean, the children. It cuts out that entire plot. And also, Isabella is not Edgar's sibling in the movie, which also makes no sense. That's just his ward, which is a little goofy to me. But whatever. Then they just cut out the whole plot of the children because Kathy has a miscarriage and dies of sepsis because she's like, my baby's dead. And they're like, you're just being dramatic. You just miss Heathcliff. You're trying to make excuses to not get out of bed. And then they look at her and she's all swollen and purple on the legs. And they're like, she has sepsis. We were wrong. She was right. Well, maybe we should listen to women sometimes when they're having medical issues. Did we ever think of that? No. Anyway, if you haven't read the book, you may enjoy Wuthering Heights. If you're into like Wattpad novels, you'd enjoy the movie. If you've never read the book, you have to completely step away from the book. I saw a video where somebody said you have to like lobotomize yourself going into it and forget anything you know about the book Wuthering Heights. And I was like, no, that's probably what I should have tried to do, because the whole time I was watching it, I said, that did not happen in the book. Speaking of things that did not happen in the book, the opening scene, if you don't want anything spoiled to you, like, don't mind this part, skip it. But in the movie, the movie opens with a scene where a guy is getting brutally hanged. And you don't know that's what's happening because the screen is black and you just hear moaning and some squeaking. And you're like, oh, somebody is having a great day. No, it opens up and the guy being hanged is like struggling and he has a sack over his face and his sack like is going in his mouth because he's like trying to gasp for air and there isn't any. And then he dies and everyone starts making out. They're like, this is so hot. And while the scene was crazy to watch, I did think that it had a lot of great symbolism for what the movie was actually about, because this movie was about the like connection between death and sexuality, which is a part of Gothic like literature, I believe, but not in the way that this movie portrayed. And I would not say this movie is a style of Gothic literature at all. Did I enjoy it? At sometimes. Did I think it was a weird AF? Yeah, I was so confused about why stuff was happening. But was that because I read the book? Most likely. Also, Matt hadn't read the book though, and he was watching it and he was like, what is this? Because he'd only seen a crash course. And I was like, you're right, what is this? But will you enjoy it if you have no connection to Wuthering Heights at all and you like Wattpad novels? Yeah, you would. Will you still think it's disturbing? Yeah, but I think that's the point. But also, the director is the same director as Saltburn, so take that in as you're going to watch it. That's all. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel.